Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled, and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm on Finding Human. And my guest today is Steve Foran, and he is in Canada. He's actually in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it is 4 o'clock in the morning. And Steve, I actually can't see you, but I hope you are online. Are you there?
Yes, Sue, I'm here and just
delighted. Oh, there you are. Thank you so much, Craig, for keeping us together, especially at our time differences. And also being able to see each other. And you look so wide awake.
Doing pretty good here this morning. It's 12 degrees. There's no 23 or 32 here in Halifax, but 12 degrees and heavy rain.
Okay, well here it's only 18 degrees, so I've got a scarf on. I actually want to start by saying thank you so much to Alon Joseph, who introduced us to each other. And I'm very grateful to him for doing so. You and I have spoken on Zoom with each other twice and have connected in that way. So thank you so much, Alon. If you would like to hear Alon's program with me, his podcast, just have a look under High FM Finding Human Podcasts. And he was on with me on the 27th of October. Now, our topic today, Steve Foran and my topic is where gratitude begins. And Jean-Paul Sartre says, we are our choices. So, Steve, let me just introduce you first, and then you can tell me about your choices, which have moved you forward. Yeah. Steve is actually an electrical engineer. And when he was doing his MBA, he told the dean that he wanted to do a thesis on exploring the relationship between gratitude and philanthropic giving. Well, I'm sure the dean was a bit surprised by that one. But you received the gold medal for the highest academic standing with that, which is quite amazing. You are so many things, and I'm not going to go through them all. But if you want to look up Steve on Safari or Google, do so on gratitudeatwork.ca, and that's one word, gratitudeatwork.ca. Now, Steve is a husband, a father, a son. He's an oldest of 5, so he's a brother, he's a grandfather, and he's a lifelong resident of Halifax, Nova Scotia. And you began to explore this relationship on it, and we're already going to a bit of a break. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
I'm back with Steve Foran from Canada, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it's 4 a.m. in the morning for him, so I'm very grateful that he's back with me. And Craig, could you just put him back on the screen for me so I can see him, please? And so we can see each other. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am here. If you keep reminding me it's 4 o'clock, I'm going to go to sleep, Sue.
I'll let you go to sleep soon. You're on for an hour with me. Now, Steve, tell me, what did this mean to you when you decided that you were going to actually look at this gratitude and what gratitude, how it could impact your life and everyone's life? How did it change you? What was the biggest change for you?
Yeah, what happens is I had this experience of, I went from thinking I was this self-made man into realizing it was as if my life was handed to me on a silver platter. And that just brought this enormous sense of gratitude into my head, my heart. And then it was like, I was in the grad school at the time, and this is like early 2000. So like when you walk into the dean's office in 2002 and say you want to do your research on gratitude at a business school, it was a weird look, as you said. And it was just this compelling idea that gratitude had this. I was always really positive, but it just had this powerful way that it could shift how what I found. I went from being very judgmental to, oh my goodness, Stephen, give them a break. You know what I mean? And my daughter will still remind me of it every now and then, because I'll say something and she'll say, hey, Dad, how's the view up there? And I said, what are you talking about? Up on your horse. This high horse view in Canada. I don't know if you have that expression. You know, if you're on your high horse, you're feeling righteous and judgy. And it's just like, you're right, because it's easy to say to someone, well, you should do this or you should do that and you should do that, because look at what I've done. And what I realized, what gratitude helped me do is balance and help me see and take. This is this idea of perspective that you said, you know, you mentioned earlier, Sue. It helped me put in perspective everything that I have been given freely, everything. And the whole shoot, man, the good stuff, the bad stuff, like all the stuff, in balance with, yes, we need to do work, and we need to stand in our greatness, and we need to stand tall in our greatness, but also not overly boastful or not humbly shy, just in this place in the middle where you recognize everything that's been given to you, and also that you have a contribution to make. And it was this, well, it ended up motivating me to leave my job and to do this for work full time.
So, I mean, that was a big risk, because you had children who were at college or school, and you had a lot of bills to pay when you decided to do this, to change your whole, leave your electrical engineering and a lucrative business.
Yeah,
and was it scary?
It didn't feel scary to me at the time. I'm not sure. It probably did for my wife, and she was like super. No, it probably did, because you're right. We had the mortgage to pay, and kids were 10, 11, 12 at the time. So it was just, it wasn't like and I didn't know it was going to work or not. And I just, engineer. I took a sheet of paper, pros and cons, and then, I don't know, Sue, or for you listening, if you ever wanted to do something and you just knew, and I just knew, like, and there was, I could always go back and do some engineering. I could always do some other things and draw on other things that I had done through the years. And in the first couple of years, as I was doing this, I was doing other type of work. If someone said, look, could you do a consulting project for us? Yes, I can. Just,
Okay. And then how did it take off? I've watched your YouTubes and I've listened to a lot of them, and it's quite amazing how your own positive attitude has influenced so many leaders. And I think that is something that we don't understand, that if a positive person seems to give out an aura that other people are attracted to, and people almost feed into that attractiveness, and it can lead you to actually exploring other areas yourself. And in listening to a lot of your YouTubes, I see that you've reached out to leaders in Canada, in the USA, you've run workshops everywhere. And that seems to have been what the gift of this work has been, that what you have brought to it, people have fed on and taken it into themselves.
Yeah, each of us, I believe, have just, the power to influence others through our simple everyday actions. It's easy for each of us, for you and I, to discount our own contributions and the impact that we have when we smile at a clerk at the mall or at a grocery store, or when we just greet somebody with a friendly hello. The power to do that, and when we specifically get in and start intentionally working around gratitude, because it really does. And I'm motioning this upward spiral with my hands, which I know you can't see. But in the social science literature, they call that pro-social inertia. right? Pro-social behaviors, this inertia, it begets more pro-social behaviors, right? So it is contagious, this idea of being positive, Sue, and you know that.
I do know that. And one of the things you did say also on, when I say I did know that, when you said that, and I actually accepted that as a compliment, because one of the YouTubes, you said so often we do not accept our own sense of gratitude. You know, whatever's given to us, we don't take as gratefully. We're inclined to push it aside. And someone said to me a while ago, gosh, I love your programs. What degrees do you have? And I made a joke and I said, Dr. Google and Dr. Safari, and we were in a long queue and I quickly sort of got out of the queue. It was at a supermarket. But I had quite a laugh at myself in the car. And I thought, I could have at least said to her, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. But so often we don't.
Yeah, we really don't. I remember a friend of he's a friend of mine now, and we met him because I had been writing a column on gratitude in the paper, and this story's going to take a bit, and I don't want to do your job, but I think we got an ad break coming up, Sue.
You are so good for 4 a.m.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and my guest today is Stephen Foran, and we are on Zoom, and he's in Canada, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. He's in Halifax, and he was about to tell me a story about when somebody who had become a friend. What was that, Steve? Could you come back onto? Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Thanks, Sue. So this whole idea of pushing things away when people give us compliments. So Bob, good friend of mine, who we met through gratitude, he said, Steve, you got to meet Kendra because she would really resonate with your message. I think you'd resonate with her. So we go out, we meet for a coffee. I meet this woman for the very first time, and we're just about to get started in our conversation, or very early in it. And she says, before we even get started, Steve, do you know what? You have to understand the difference that you've made in Bob's life. And then she stops dead tracks in her sentence, stands up and says, you're uncomfortable. You're looking away. You need to realize what you do. And you know what? She caught me, because you know what? I was trying to deflect it. It's like we can be embarrassed because someone is giving us a compliment. And really what she was telling me is just, Steve, stand in your greatness, accept the compliment, kind of similar to the story that you said, Sue.
Yeah.
And so it's just really to be conscious and aware of that. I am so aware of that all the time now. And
well, I must admit, after listening to your YouTube, I thought, well, how often do we actually just brush a compliment aside? Someone says, gosh, I like the color you're wearing today. Oh, this old thing,
Right. It was nothing, or no,
absolutely.
it wasn't. It just.
Now, Steve, what I would like to discuss with you, our community, our Jewish community, is a small community in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And we have had a lot of losses lately, losses through COVID, losses in many forms, obviously business, loss of life. We've also had violent deaths. We've also just experienced a very violent death in a terrorist attack in Jerusalem, and I would call him one of our own, because he was an ex-South African. So we are reeling at the moment from this sense of absolute despair and shock. How would you what would you say? I know you deal with leaders, but in this, one of your YouTubes, you said everyone is a leader. No matter who you are a leader. So how would you encourage people to actually cope with this, with what's going on at the moment?
Yeah, my heart goes out for you and the community and the families of those involved, and Sue, and just we layer on that what's happening, what we hear regularly. And it's just at the top of the hour of the news, we heard about deaths in the United States, in Asia, and flooding and all these other things. And it can be very heavy and consuming, and it can be hard for us. And what gratitude is not saying, yes, I'm grateful for this specific incident, because I would never say that. I would never say you should be grateful in this situation. But when I find myself in challenging situations, when my mom died, I asked myself, Steve, what am I grateful for in this? I asked myself, what am I grateful for in that situation? And only I can ask myself that, just as only you can ask yourself, what am I grateful for in this situation? And really that question is about finding the good. And I know, Sue, that when we talked the other day, you were part of a Zoom call where you were participating in
of the funeral. Mm-hmm.
of the funeral. And one of the things you might have found there was the solidarity in the community that you were a part of, because that can be part of the good that you see. I'm grateful that I have this community of people. And so really gratitude is a way in the darkest hours to be looking for. It's really about where's the good, because when you and I can see the good, it changes how our brain works. And it actually can, it changes how our brain works. And the executive function in our brain, in your brain, which controls critical thinking, decision-making, creativity, innovation, moderates our behaviors. When we're in a negative emotional state, we lose access to that. And that's what you and I need most when all these things happen. And so it's not about pretending this stuff doesn't happen and just, oh, this is Pollyanna. It's about genuinely trying to make sense of it, to take a perspective, see some of the good, and then to be able to, whether it's move forward, move through, whatever language is comfortable for you to, to be able to process and deal with really heavy, challenging issues. And for me, gratitude has been very helpful in that, because yeah.
Well, I have to agree with you. And Viktor Frankl, in his values, his core values, he said that he managed to get through the camps in gratitude, with that attitude of gratitude, of companionship, of being alive to see that day. But just going back to that funeral, as you were talking, because I had to go off the Zoom, because I said to you there were about 1,000 people on the Zoom at the time, and then you and I were connecting. Do you know that what was very beautiful and I found incredibly moving was how somebody suddenly started to sing. Now, there were thousands and thousands of people in Jerusalem at the funeral, and somebody started to sing, which is very unusual. And everyone started to sing. Singing in praise, in thanksgiving, in gratitude for this young boy's life. Mm-hmm. It was, I don't think there could have been a dry eye. It was so moving. I'd never seen that before. And it just took a few people to just start humming, and then a song suddenly started emerging that everyone knew. And it just took over that entire thousands and thousands of people. That was amazing. Now, going back to you, you talk about the hierarchy of from surviving to thriving. And you talk about the 4 levels. Explain that to me, please.
Yeah, so these levels are really mindsets. And, when it comes back to this idea of leadership first, Sue, and I believe everyone is a leader. I don't care whether you're, the CEO or you're an intern or custodial, and how you show up depends on your mindset. And to influence others, first you influence yourself, and your mindset has the biggest control over that or impact on that. And so think of optimist, pessimist, how you make sense of things differently. Well, my hierarchy, it goes from surviving to thriving. Surviving, life is a battleground. So think of the families and how they must feel. If I'm the parents of that young boy, I know how I would feel if that was my son, right? So it feels like life is a battleground. Striving, life is overwhelming. It's hard, like just hard work. Arriving, life is good. Life is good. And thriving, life is a playground, right? And so
Steve
these are
is
mindsets.
shaking a golden shaker at me.
I got my shaker here but it's and our mindset, your mindset, like it's a choice. And you think about it, like, and to read Viktor Frankl's story and how access to boots and footwear and to be how important that was and how he controlled his mind to be able to make sense of it in a way that he was able to. I believe he had a thriving mindset as he survived to be able to, because he could control that. And it's not easy. Do you think it was easy for Viktor Frankl to have that type of mindset in the camp?
Absolutely.
I can't imagine. I
and
cannot imagine.
Elie Wiesel, who was a Holocaust survivor, an author, a Nobel Prize winner, he actually said, "For me, every hour is grace. I feel gratitude in my heart each time I can meet someone and look at his or her smile." And isn't that beautiful? Amazing for someone who's gone through that. And it reminded me of I was telling you about robots yesterday, and
Yes.
You looked confused, and I said everyone who arrives in South Africa is confused. A robot in South Africa is actually a stoplight. And I was at a stoplight, but unfortunately we had what's called load shedding here, which means no electricity. So, of course, the stoplight was not working at all. It was blank. The cars were shooting in all directions, and it was raining very softly. It was drizzling. And a very tattered man came up. We call them beggars here. I think you've got a nicer word for them. But he came up to my window and asked me for money. Now, all I didn't have any silver money. We carried, I only had a note, a 10 Rand note, which was probably about 8 cents in your money. But anyway, so I opened my window and I handed it to him. And of course, it was getting wet, and he was getting wet, and he had a garbage bag over him. But not his head, obviously. And he put his hand out and he took the note, but he was still holding it in his hand as he was blessing me. So he was blessing me and blessing me. And eventually I said to him, that's getting sopping wet. Cars are shooting in all directions. Please get to the side of the road. But thanks for the blessing. He started to laugh and I started to laugh. And we both left each other with a smile. And it is what Elie Wiesel said, the grace in someone else's smile and in being able to share a moment like that in the rain with the electricity off, with a poor man standing on the side of the road with a garbage bag over him, getting my 10 Rand note wet.
Powerful story. A story of equals too, Sue.
Yeah, it was.
Right? A story of equals, because it's right. A story of equals, because it's so easy to think I look down on someone and a giver and a receiver. To me, I see it when gratitude is involved in it, it takes it from a transactional exchange to something that's transformational. And you received a gift from him, and just the joy in your eyes and your voice as you shared that story, very powerful. And that's going to be with you for a while, isn't it?
No, it really is. I've actually, funny enough, I've looked for him since then. But quite honestly, every time I've come up to that robot or traffic light, the electricity's been working, so it's been on green, and I've shot through. And I've actually wished that it was on red or the electricity was off, so that I could at least see the man,
That's awesome.
and greet him again. But Steve, now the other thing I wanted to know, you have written a book, a fantastic book, I believe, and you can get it on Amazon. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, it came out 3 years ago. And I started writing it in my head probably 15 years ago. And every year I was going to write this book every year. Now it's not the time, not the time, not the time. I did write it. It came out in 2000. I'm going to say 2018. It might have been 2019. Time goes so fast. No, it was 2018. No, it was 2019.
So it came out in time for COVID.
Pardon me?
It came out in time for COVID to make.
Oh yeah, it was out. It was out before COVID, and because I know we had the launch party and everything, and we were all allowed to get together then. And but really, it was the culmination. At least, when I started, I thought I knew everything about gratitude. 15 years ago, 60, I thought I knew everything about gratitude. 15 years later, I realized how little I know about gratitude. You know what I mean? But that book has really,
every day, don't we?
Right? It's a journey of mastery. And I just wanted to, in a way that used my own stories, help illustrate everyday leadership lessons. And leadership lessons could be in a home, in a community kitchen, it could be in a corporate workplace, and how to use gratitude so that you can feel like you're living a thriving life, and that when all the challenges and happen in the chaos and the uncertainty, when that presents itself, how you can use gratitude as a tool to move yourself through it, to build resilience, and to carry yourself forward. So that's why I did it, and use it with clients, and have interacted with all. It's taken me many different directions because of that. So,
and it certainly was very well received. I see it was one of 8 recommended reads by the Greater Science, a Good Science Center of the University of Berkeley.
Yeah, that was
and one of 5, I think, positive books for a happier 2019.
Yeah, I was, when you do write a book, you're always kind of thinking, oh, geez, I want to get some sort of recognition, or at least I am. Okay, I'm telling you, I want to be somehow. It's not a New York Times bestseller, but I want to somehow get this. How do you get in the club? Whatever. I realize there is no club, but just to get those external validations, it really, it just provides some comfort. And so to me, like Kendra told me, that's the woman I had coffee with when I received that, Steve, just stand in your greatness. Yeah, thank you very much. And it was just very edifying to have that.
I actually just want to tell anyone who wants to know the name of the book. It's called Surviving to Thriving, The 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. You can actually, there's a Kindle edition.
Yeah.
And I know a few people who are listening in have problems with their eyes, so they'll be very pleased that there's a Kindle edition as well. Or you can get it on Amazon. And I haven't tried it exclusives yet, which is one of our big bookstores. Perhaps they have it, but I'm going to definitely order it on Amazon, which is fantastic. Now, Steve, before you suddenly say we're going to ad break, I just wanted to say that if anyone would like to contact us, they can on SMS 34519, or you can telegram us on 061 895 1019. Well done, Susan. You remembered that. Suddenly I had a bit of a blank. Now, what I would like to know about you, I know that you mentioned Martin Seligman. Mm-hmm. And Martin Seligman, who was the founder of positive psychology. Mm-hmm. And you talk about his PERMA model. Just fill me in a bit with that, please.
Yeah, so PERMA is a model for human flourishing. So it's, and I know you've talked about this on previous shows, because I've listened to the one with Alon, and you talked about Seligman quite a bit. But flourishing involves well-being and happiness. It involves a life that's characterized by resilience, which is building longer-term resources and being able to recover from challenges when they hit. Generativity is this thing that you and I have to be able to know what to do in circumstances that you'd never been in before, right? So there's different things, and these are the building blocks or foundations of living a flourishing or thriving life. Well, PERMA, there are 24 positive character strengths that Seligman and his colleagues have identified, and we'll learn more about them in a bit.
We're going to get back to that.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Steve Foran, and we're about to listen to a very short YouTube of his called Gratitude in the Midst of Challenges.
One of the guys I talked to in my research, he said, I learned gratitude at a very young age. He grew up in what we would describe as abject poverty. The fridge, it didn't have food in it. Like they didn't know what was going to be for supper. He says, I remember days my father would come home and he said, he'd bring home this big box of donuts that were, they had leftovers or something. So there was this big box of donuts. And the first thing he said as he brought them in the house was, we got to make sure we share these with the people across the street.
Wow.
Like, so this notion of, and so they gave not from their excess, but they gave from what they had. Wow. Not because it was extra, but because they felt connection and community and camaraderie and solidarity, whatever it was, with others. And it was out of this sense of feeling blessed. Can you imagine feeling blessed to have, 18 donuts in the house when you got kids to feed, and that could be supper? Like, you think of challenges, it is hard. It's harder to be grateful in the midst of challenges. At least for me, it is. Yeah. It doesn't make the challenge go away. But if I want to be in the headspace, if you want to be in the headspace to deal with a challenge, we got to be in a positive emotional state, right? Otherwise, your executive function, effectively, we're shutting it off. So we need to be in that state. So the research will tell you that you need to have that to be able to better deal with your challenges.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Steve Foran on Finding Human program. And Steve, when you were writing your thesis, it was about philanthropic giving plus gratitude. So if I could see you again, it would be great. Could you just put him back on again, please, Craig, so I can see him? Tell me about the philanthropic giving, because that's what you're actually talking about there.
Yeah, it is. And philanthropic giving, it also extends to serving, to helping others, just anything we do in connecting to others. And what I discovered through these interviews with generous people in our community, right across income spectrum, is that at the core of why they give, why they serve, why they help others was gratitude. And if you look at if you looked at why, if you were to ask someone, well, why did you give to that beggar? Why did you give to the hospital? Why did you give to the international development? Why did you give to the Humane Society for Animals and Pets? They'll say the initial response is something like, well, I believe in the cause. And that's a superficial. So if you start peeling it back, well, why, and you start doing the whys, and that's what we did in these interviews, is just kept going, why, and at the core, well, I'm just so thankful for everything that I've received. And so, which is language around gratitude. And it was just like this compelling idea, because it's interesting to me. You told a story about someone asking you for money on the street, and I go back to 1995, and I was in the street corner. The robot, I was standing, there was a robot there. We don't call them robots.
Yeah.
we call them traffic lights. And I called it a grocery store earlier, and that's a supermarket in Canada too. So, and a guy asked me for money, and I was just like, no. And, in my head, the judgment is all going on about, oh, you get a job. Why don't you do this? And as if I had no compassion at all today I've got a policy. If someone asks me for money, you ask me for money, you're going to get some or all of what I got in my pocket. And because if I truly see everything I have as a gift, I'm just this temporary custodian here. And so it's out of gratitude, I'm just going to pay it forward. And it connects back to this idea of we each, I believe each of us, you listening, you are uniquely gifted. And if you can see your gifts, your talents as gifts, use them in service of humanity in some whatever way that is, that resonates with you, and you will stand in your greatness when you do that.
I must admit, I do agree with you completely. And Sadhguru, who's the yogi master, said, gratitude means being receptive to life. And what you're saying is, if you're meeting someone, for instance, in the grocery store, be receptive to them as a person, as a fellow human being, that we are all unique and we're all in our own brightness, we're standing in it. And that's where we're meant to be. And I think compassion comes in to this work as well, quite honestly, Steve. I think especially in South Africa. I'm going to get back to compassion in a moment, but a message has come through from Mary Ann Elho, thank you, from Northcliffe. She says, the gem I've taken from your interview with Steve is your sharing about the beggar from the transactional to the, it's cut off, to the transformational and equality in the interaction. That's great. I'm pleased. And that's, I must admit, what we are talking about. This one, if you grew into a 50-foot giant, would you step on people? Well, I don't know. That was from Joseph. And you wouldn't step on people, would you? Even if you were a 50-foot giant.
I certainly hope not.
That's getting off your horse, as your child says.
It would be.
Now, going back to compassion, how does compassion come into your work?
It doesn't. It does. I think just it's intrinsic. Somehow it's intrinsic with it. If we had someone like Seligman here or Barbara Friedrichsen or some other, social scientist, they would probably be able to explain exactly the overlap between some of these virtues and values. But, compassion, if you look at that word, it comes from the Latin calm, with, passion, suffer. So it's about suffering with others. We don't, you wouldn't necessarily think that, would you? So, so it's when showing compassion is putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. And what, to me, the connection to gratitude and compassion is that when I can see who I am and my identity, my sense of self is not complete, like I used to think I was this self-made man, completely independent, or I could think I'm completely dependent. When I'm in this middle in independent or interdependence, that's how I get this compassion and connect with others.
That's so true. Wonderful.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Steve Foran, and I'm already being told to wrap up. But I just wanted to say that if you want to listen to Steve's YouTubes, it's Steve, S-T-E-V-E, and Foran, F-O-R-A-N. And you can also get him on gratitudeatwork.ca, one word, gratitude at work. And Steve, we've got so much more to talk about. How would you like to end the program? I would actually like you to say, if you don't mind, something about 1 billion people, 1 billion happier people.
Yes. So my dream, my purpose, it became much clearer to me as I was writing the book, and it came to me as I was writing the book. And so my dream is 1 billion happier people. And I believe gratitude is a way, and spreading gratitude is the way that we're going to get there. And if there was one thing that you could do each day, is just some point in your day, step back, get yourself a journal and just record 3 things, maybe 3, 4. One, if you can only find one, just record 3 things you're grateful for each day. And I guarantee it will be a game changer for you.
And you can find this under 1 billion happier people under Steve. Eckhart Tolle says, acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Mm. And I think that is something in this time of challenge for everybody. It's a collective challenge that's going on in the world today. I think it's making us all stop and reassess our lives. And perhaps if we can look at each other and acknowledge each other's greatness and also the abundance in all our lives, whatever that abundance might be. It might be that donut that you're sharing with your neighbors, as you said in that YouTube, which it is that sharing and that connecting with others, which is just so important. Steve, I've really enjoyed this. Next year, I will definitely invite you back on my program. Hopefully we'll be back. Yeah, okay, you're shaking your gold again. You know what? Silver goes down better in South Africa, even though we're a gold country. But next year, hopefully it will be at a better time for you, because we'll do it from the studio and we'll do a pre-record and it'll be a decent time. Are you going back to bed now?
I just might. Sue, it's been awesome to be here with you. Thanks so much. And I appreciate our conversation today. Had fun.
And you too, Steve. God bless. And thank you so much, Bussy and Craig, for keeping us on air.